please put your hands together for the wonderful Julie Hollis. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Julie Hollis. So I'm the Secretary General of EuroGeosurveys. Surveys. We're a not-for-profit organisation that represents 37 geological survey organisations of Europe. These are the national organisations that have a mandate to collect and archive, interpret, and make available data and information and knowledge of the geology of their national territories, which includes, of course, mineral raw materials. Our organisation acts as a collective voice for our member organisations at European level, and also in support of collaborative actions and projects of our members, some of which I'll talk about. So I was asked to contribute my perspectives on behalf of EuroGeosurveys Surveys on how collaboration is essential for resilient and responsible mineral value chains, and what real collaboration looks like in practice, focusing on the importance of collaboration and how we foster it. So before I give a bit more detail on those perspectives, I thought I would jump straight to my answers, which are these: diversity, trust, engagement, value, inclusivity, respect, and openness. In my view and experience, these are some crucial aspects of how we achieve successful collaborations, but I will come back to this, of course. So I wanted to get into a few questions to set the scene, and that is these. So I'm going to begin with what constitutes and contributes to resilience, and then also looking at responsible raw materials. Then why do we collaborate? And what does effective collaboration look like? And then I'll say a few more words about the experiences and the roles of the geological surveys. So we're talking about resilient and responsible raw material value chains. So let's break that down a little bit. And most likely those of you listening know something about raw material value chains, but just briefly, this is the kind of thing that we're talking about, all the stages in bringing a mineral raw material from where it originates in a rock through to its final use in some manufactured product. So that includes all of these stages: exploration, mining, processing, refining, manufacturing, distribution, use, through to end of life. So recycling, reuse, or disposal. And if we consider the role of geological surveys along this path, then they are, of course, involved in generating pre-competitive geoscientific data that's necessary to promote exploration interest and investment. Some are also involved in developing technology and processes related to mining and processing, and also characterization of mine wastes for potential remining. Of course, we want resilient raw materials supply chains to minimize the effect of disruptions like these, some of which we have, of course, experienced in recent years, and some of which we continue to experience. So what does resilience actually look like in practice? And here it includes many of these things. So diversification, so that we're avoiding overdependence on single points of failure, but instead relying on multiple sources for extraction and processing and suppliers and so on. Flexibility and agility, to be able to switch suppliers, for example. Redundancy and buffers. Here you can take into consideration strategic stockpiling, for example. Transparency and visibility. Collaboration, of course, partnerships and communication along the value chain. Circular economy and technological innovation. And when we consider these things, these are some of the key areas, again, where geological surveys can provide some key contributions. If we consider what contributes specifically to responsible raw material value chains, we need to consider these kinds of things, where we're bringing in ESG, and again, here, the geological surveys have important roles, particularly in regard to implementation of ESG standards, linked to the Sustainable Development Goals through application of UNFC, which I'll say a little bit more about later, and which I'm sure Harry will expand on also in his presentation. But why do we actually want to or need to collaborate when we're thinking about resilient and responsible raw material value chains? Particularly if we consider that competition, of course, is actually an integral part of aspects of these value chains, such as a healthy exploration sector. Well, of course, science tells us that when we're dealing with complex problems, collaborative efforts are more successful in achieving results. And if we look at raw materials value chains, these are, of course, intricate, connected global networks of stakeholders and processes. So this is a complex system where particularly states operating independently are unlikely to be efficient or effective on their own. So here are some good reasons to collaborate in terms of resilience: enhanced visibility and risk anticipation, joint risk mitigation and contingency planning, increased flexibility. Sorry. Sorry, I have skipped here. Right. Sorry. Here we go. Sorry about that. All right, faster problem solving, investment in shared resources, and so on. And in terms of responsible raw materials, a whole range of areas where collaboration again contributes. So developing and implementing standards, traceability and transparency again, facilitating due diligence, addressing ESG, capacity building, and so on. And in many of these areas, geological surveys already contribute and have the capacity to have a very strong contribution. So I was asked to comment from the perspective of the geological surveys, which I'll go into a little bit more now. But I first want to mention that the mission of EuroGeo surveys is to enable sustainable and responsible use of the Earth's subsurface environment and resources. So here, the word responsible enters specifically into our mission. And this, of course, includes raw materials, but is not limited to that. And we have a vision of achieving this through a future geological service for Europe. Regarding our role in responsible raw materials, we can start from the Critical Raw Materials Act, which I know has already been highlighted in this conference. Here, the National Geological Surveys of Europe have been delivered a mandate to coordinate national exploration programs and report these to the Critical Raw Materials Act board. These national exploration programs are an extension of the foundational geological surveying work that all of them are mandated to deliver at national level. And to support this, EuroGeo Surveys has established a national exploration program subgroup of our mineral resources expert group, which is one of 11 scientific thematic expert groups that form the scientific base of our organization to share knowledge and best practices. The National Exploration Program subgroup currently has 48 members from 30 countries. So the national exploration programs are aimed at increasing the knowledge of the raw materials resource potential of Europe and promoting exploration, investment, and new discoveries. And the surveys also have roles in regard to the Act in characterization of mine waste for secondary mining. What's also relevant is the collaboration between our members on a number of projects that deal with raw materials. And because of time, I'm only going to mention specifically our flagship project, which is coordinated by EuroGeo Surveys, which is the Geological Service for Europe project, which aims to deliver data harmonized at European scale, including for raw materials. And the latest onshore harmonized critical raw materials map is shown here. It will also deliver the International Centre of Excellence for Sustainable Resource Management, which will be officially launched next month to deliver training and promotion of uptake of UNFC. And it's the geological surveys that comprise the core of European expertise in UNFC. I also want to highlight that Eurogeo Surveys is a contributing organisation to 5 EU bilateral partnerships on raw materials, which contain within their framework key elements to promote responsible resource management, as well as having links to another 4 African partnerships through the PanAfGeo project, which I'll mention a little later as well, and will likely also participate in at least one more. And while various of our members have been involved in these partnerships individually, we're now seeing an increased willingness and interest in acting collaboratively under the banner of Eurogeo Surveys to contribute to these partnerships, to allow us to draw on the different strengths and expertise of the different surveys in providing technical support. Regarding international partnerships, we have long-running close cooperations with various organisations, including sister organisations in the CCOP in Asia, ASCME in South America, and OAGS in Africa, as well as many others. And these allow us to connect scientific expertise and networking opportunities beyond Europe and to support our collaborative project efforts through geoscience diplomacy. So my experience of the very broad and engaged collaborative networks operating through Eurogeo Surveys tells me that effective, long-lasting collaboration requires a lot of ongoing effort, a lot of engagement. This image, for example, shows our path through large collaborative projects leading towards a future geological service for Europe. But the collaboration in Eurogeo Surveys extends all the way back 54 years to the establishment of the organisation. And achieving the kind of collaboration that we have, I think, is a very human endeavour, which I think Sarah referred to earlier. And just like any relationship, it needs ongoing commitment. The feedback that I receive from our member organisations is that there's also an inherent value in cooperation itself. So our pan-European scientific expert groups are seen by our member organisations as the key asset at national level for their membership of our organisation, for the value that they provide in mentorship, professional networking, and knowledge sharing. So the key point is that what our members most value is collaboration itself. And this requires a sincere commitment to including and being open to others and to different perspectives and approaches. A perfect example of this is our PanAfGeo project. After 8 years and training of more than 1,700 geologists from the Geological Surveys of Africa, from every African country, what is clear as well that there is great value in the technical and professional trainings that we've provided collaboratively with the Organisation of African Geological Surveys. The strategic value for the European Union is in the collaborative network itself, which has developed over the years. A high level of connection and trust, which has permeated into institutional levels. And this comes down to a network of committed and engaged people. So the same is what I see for the potential for the European Geological Surveys in continuing engagement in supporting responsible raw materials through a future geological service for Europe. So of course, this can provide access to harmonized data, national knowledge, European level knowledge sharing, expertise in ESG standards through the UNFC and so on. But this provides an institutionalized framework for the existing trusted network that's been built through Eurogeo Surveys and our collaborative project work over decades. So in short, my experience is that the rewards of investing in collaboration often extend well beyond the original aims of that collaboration, and the inherent value is it goes beyond the technical output. I will end there. Thank you very much.
Round of applause, everybody, for the wonderful Julie Hollis. That was great. Julie, there are a couple of questions that have been coming in online at the moment, if I may. The first one is from Johannes, and Johannes is asking, how would you characterize the current state of collaboration between European National Geological Surveys and the environmental ministries? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, right. Um, I can't point to the exact numbers, but many of our members actually fall under environmental ministries. So there's a direct relationship there for many of our members. Um, and so I guess the answer would be that in general, in that sense, it's quite good because our members report directly to some of those ministries. Um, but I can't give you the specifics in regard to individual cases. Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, it's a related question to that. When you showed the value chain with regards to materials and going from exploration into the mining and the extraction into processing, and then of course there's that gap, which is effectively the where the metal or the minerals go off, and hopefully around the circular economy. But then from that geological perspective, we typically stay with the land, and so we're going into that sort of post-mining state. What sort of collaboration do we have with those that are dealing with those materials when they go off into a battery or into a car, etc.? Does that then go into a totally different ecosystem, or is there any relationship between that geological side and then what happens further downstream with regards to the materials?
Yeah, okay. In general, the geological surveys deal mainly with the upstream side, for sure. However, there is, for example, a project that many of our members are involved in, which is the Future project, which aims to actually track these processes. And one of the key involvements of the surveys there is in looking at mine wastes, as I referred to. So that's their main contribution there in terms of recycling and waste and so on is characterization of mine wastes. So I think that's the main point of intersection there.
Yeah. And how about in terms of the 37 different surveys that you have within the group? I'm assuming that there are some who are incredibly well established, probably, they might be quite large, incredibly well regarded and well known, and yet there might be others who just don't have that history or I guess that scale, etc., behind them. How do you balance or facilitate that variation in the members?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really important point. I think you're absolutely right. There are surveys who've been around for 2 centuries, and there are surveys who've been around for 10 years, and who vary in size from, I think, the smallest has, I think, 3 staff, and the largest has many hundreds. And they have different areas of expertise as well, which in part relates to their different geology. One aspect is that in all of the decision making in our organization, it's one country, one vote. So larger countries, larger organizations don't dominate. There's an equal voice for everyone. But also, and also, I think basically these differences are what makes the organization work really well because it provides opportunities for small surveys to draw on expertise of some of the larger surveys that have more capacity. Um, but it goes in the other direction as well. There are very different experiences, different frameworks for the organization, and all of them draw great value from being able to get the perspectives of the other organizations. There are many projects where a subset of the members will get together to work on cross-border projects, for example, or on projects where they have some common geological focus that might not be relevant to everyone. So there are many different ways that they find valuable points of intersection.
Fantastic. No, thank you very, very much for that, Julie, because I think that's often one of those balancing acts that's needed. There's great strength with regards to it, and I love that one country, one vote. perspective. So
Mm.
with that, everyone, please put your hands together for the fantastic Julie Hollis. Thank you very much, Julie. That was amazing. Thank you.